Hey friends, tonight we step onto a path softened by autumn, where the wind wears robes of gold and the trees whisper more than they speak. The temple stones are still warm from the sun's last smile, and somewhere nearby, a bamboo chime forgets its melody mid-sway. A lone monk, silent as the dawn, walks without hurry, and you are him. Or maybe, just maybe, he is you. So, before you settle in, take a moment to like and subscribe only if you truly enjoy this peaceful space. Let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what time your evening begins. Now dim the lights, maybe light a candle or turn on a gentle breeze, and let's slip softly into tonight's Zen journey together. You step out into the morning before the gong, not because you're rebellious, but because you forgot the sound mattered. The temple is still asleep if buildings ever sleep, but the stones beneath your feet remember you. They greet your souls with the crunch of dried maple and ginkgo leaves, thin little echoes folded into color. You don't speak. You haven't in months. At first it was part of a vow, silence as discipline. Then it became easier. Then it became you. Words have edges, but silence. Silence has corners you can rest in. Autumn in the monastery is a second teacher. It says things the abbots won't. That everything glows most warmly just before it lets go. That you don't need to fix the wind to understand its direction. And that some things, like your old sandals or your older habits, are meant to fall apart gracefully. You breathe in. The air is cool, but not cold. Not yet. The mountains stretch themselves slowly behind the mist like a cat unsure whether to get up. Your robes hang heavy with the scent of pine needles, rice smoke, and a trace of last night's incense, jasmine and something unnamed. On the path ahead, a fat squirrel pauses mid-cheek stuff, staring at you as if monks aren't supposed to walk this early. You nod. He doesn't. Zen masters still debate whether squirrels recognize enlightenment when they see it. To your right, the stone lantern that cracked in last spring's rain still stands, wounded, moss-covered, and perfect. You once asked the head monk if it should be repaired. He tapped it with his staff and said, "Would you repaint a memory to make it newer?" The leaves continue to fall. They don't rush. Why would they? You pass the outer gate. Its wooden beam hums gently as your sleeve brushes it. This is the part of the walk that reminds you of your master. He used to pause here, every morning, and whisper a phrase to the wind. You never asked what it was. Maybe he was saying goodbye to summer. Or maybe, just maybe, he was saying hello to emptiness. There's a tree whose roots broke through the stepping stones near the pond. The abbots argue about it during meetings, quietly. It makes the path uneven. A safety hazard, they say, especially for the older monks. But the gardener refuses to touch it. It grew without permission, she says. That's a kind of courage. You almost tripped over it once. Didn't. You stop near the pond. The koi haven't risen yet. Water mirrors sky, but the reflection lies. You lean in. Your face doesn't look like yours. Or maybe it never did. A mosquito lands on your nose. You do nothing. Then it leaves. Balance, perhaps. A few monks believe enlightenment lies in grand gestures, year-long fasts, chanting marathons, mountain exiles. But your master used to say, Zen is when you notice a leaf land on your sleeve, and don't brush it off. There's a bamboo stick leaning near the bell tower. You carved it weeks ago and forgot. The initials aren't yours. You wonder whose hands reached into that moment with you. Or for you. A breeze picks up. It smells faintly of roasted chestnuts. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster reconsiders his song and settles for a half-hearted crow. You step over a pile of leaves that wasn't there yesterday. It has arranged itself into a spiral. No one claims to make them, but they appear after windless nights. The wind writes haiku, someone once joked. You liked that. You arrive at the kitchen door, not to enter, just to listen. The soft scrape of ladle on pot, a murmur of miso, and the clink of ceramic bowls. Someone's humming off-key. It's beautiful. You turn back. This walk, this silence, isn't a straight line. It loops. It listens. It leads you back not where you began, but where you forgot you were. As you head toward the garden, your foot brushes a fallen stick. It rolls exactly once and stops, like a thought you didn't quite think. The rake rests exactly where you left it, leaning against the tool shed with the quiet dignity of a retired sword. The garden is mostly still, but already 3 leaves have had the audacity to fall where you raked just yesterday. You look at them like you would a student who just asked a question with no intention of listening to the answer. You pick up the rake, it sighs, or maybe you do. Sweeping the gravel paths is a daily task, not a punishment, not a meditation, just a movement. But it has a way of rearranging your thoughts, back and forth, forward and return. The pattern you make today won't match yesterday's. That's the point. No rake ever makes the same mark twice, your master once said. He had a habit of offering wisdom while chewing daikon. The sky is a soft gray today, the kind that wants to be rain but hasn't made up its mind yet. A single crow caws in the distance, as if reminding you this silence isn't complete. Zen masters still debate whether crows are critics or comedians. As you pull the rake through the gravel, each stroke becomes a line in a painting only you will see. But then, you think, why do you assume it's only yours? Maybe the garden's watching you too. Maybe the stones whisper to the leaves when you're not listening. Or maybe that's just leftover rice in your head again. You pause, rake midair. A memory. Your first autumn here. You raked furiously then, trying to impress, trying to perfect the pattern. A senior monk walked by and asked why you were fighting the wind. You hadn't realized you were. But the way your hands ached told you he was right. Today you don't fight. Today you rake like the leaves are dancing and you're just tidying up after a really good party. One with no guests, just the breeze. As you move, a thought drifts in. What if the leaves wanted to be here? What if you, in all your tidying, were interrupting someone else's idea of beauty? That idea makes you pause. You lean on the rake handle like it's a walking stick for your mind. The gravel is part clean, part messy, and you decide, just for now, to leave it that way. You sit on the edge of the rock bench. The stone is cold enough to remind you you're alive. A spider has built a web beneath it. You blow gently on the strands, just enough to make them shimmer, not enough to break them. In the distance, someone laughs. Not a loud laugh, just a soft exhale with a story attached. It's the novice monk. You can picture his face, always 80% wonder, 20% sleep. He once asked you if trees knew they were shedding, or if it was a surprise every time. You told him, even trees let go without knowing why. The rake falls from your lap. You don't pick it up right away. You watch a leaf spin its way down from the cherry tree and land squarely in the circle you raked an hour ago. It doesn't apologize, doesn't explain, just is. Zen stories often begin like this. A monk asked, or the master replied. But sometimes there are no questions, just falling leaves, just raked patterns that get unraked moments later. Your master once told a story about a leaf who refused to fall, clinging to the branch through frost, wind, even birds pecking at it. In the end, he said, the tree let go of the leaf. You're not sure if he meant it literally or as a warning, maybe both. Raking again, you hum a song you heard in the market months ago. You don't know the words, just the tune. It wobbles, then finds itself. A gust of wind lifts half a dozen leaves and scatters them across your work. You laugh, soft, brief. The rake? You lean it against the shed again. The lines in the gravel, uneven, fading, lovely. Somewhere inside the main hall, the gong rings for morning sutra. You turn to go but take the long way, past the persimmon tree, the crooked lantern, and that one stubborn stone you always nearly trip over. You don't mind. You wonder, as you often do, whether the leaves remember being green. And if so, do they miss it? A cloud moves across the sun. The shadows shift. You follow the winding path behind the zendo, where the gravel gives way to soft moss and scattered pine needles. Here, the air thickens with quiet. It's the kind of stillness that folds around you like a second robe, heavier than silence, lighter than thought. And that's when you see it. A frog. Round, motionless, sitting on the flat stone near the bamboo spout. Not blinking. Not breathing. Or at least, not visibly. You stop too. One monk. One frog. Neither of you moves. This could last an hour. Or a lifetime. You've learned not to assume either is different. The frog stares forward as if waiting for a punchline that will never come. You recognize something in that face. Not confusion. Not anticipation. Just pure, unfiltered being. The kind of presence you chase during zazen, but only catch for half a breath before your knees start whispering complaints. Your master used to say, "The frog does not meditate. That is why he is enlightened." Then he'd chuckle and tap your forehead with 2 fingers, like trying to knock sense into an old jar. You lower yourself to the stone opposite the frog. It doesn't flinch. You match its posture, legs folded, back tall, gaze unfocused but soft. For a few minutes you try to not try, and then it happens. You realize the frog isn't just sitting, it's being sat by the universe, like a teacup being held or a bell being rung. You wonder briefly if you're sitting at all, or just being gently placed by something larger. Zen masters still argue whether just sitting, shikantaza, means perfect awareness or perfect emptiness. Your knees, meanwhile, argue that stones make poor cushions. The frog finally blinks, then it hops once, stops, looks at you again. There's a shared moment where you both acknowledge nothing has happened and everything has. The wind picks up, carrying a single pine needle down between you. It lands like punctuation. You rise slowly, legs tingling. The frog stays. You bow. The frog doesn't. Enlightenment isn't polite. As you walk on, a thought emerges. Am I trying too hard to stop trying? You stop under the tall cypress whose bark peels like old scrolls. You run a hand over it and feel decades crumble gently into your palm. You remember a koan from the early Tang period. A monk asked, "How can I return to the way?" The master said, "Do you hear the brook?" The monk said yes. "Then return to it." You once heard that and nodded sagely. Then you tripped into the brook an hour later. The way is slippery. Past the cypress grove, you approach the old bench carved from a lightning-struck tree. It crackles slightly when sat on. The novice monk swears it hums when the moon's full. You haven't checked. You sit anyway. From here, the garden looks different. Not because the garden changed, but because you did. Or maybe the bench is magic. Hard to say. A maple leaf flutters down and lands on your knee. You don't brush it off. It seems happy there. Your master once joked, if you sit long enough, even your thoughts will fall asleep. You look around. The frog is gone. Or maybe never was. You smile. Sometimes, in the most still moments, even memory sits very still. The sun climbs slowly, spilling golden light onto the path as you wander toward the side veranda of the kitchen hall. The stone steps here are smoother than the rest, polished not by hands, but by habit. You've walked them often. So has everyone. So have ghosts. She's already there. The old nun with the cloud-colored hair and the eyes that smile more than her mouth. She sits cross-legged beside the tea table, a tiny pot in front of her, steam rising like a spirit with nowhere else to go. Her robe is layered in creams and soft earth tones, faded enough to suggest that time does the laundry. You sit without a word, not because of your vow, because words would feel like clutter here. She pours you a cup without looking. No nod, no glance. The exact amount you like. The cup she knows you always choose. You bow your head slightly. She doesn't bow back. Enlightenment, after all, doesn't waste motion. The first sip tastes like roasted barley and the memory of firewood. It fills your mouth and disappears too fast. Like most things. "Before you think of speaking," she murmurs. Remember that tea only spills when the cup is full of something else. You weren't going to speak, but the reminder still lands. Zen masters have debated whether silence is the beginning of wisdom or just the end of argument. She seems to believe it's both. You watch the steam curl upward, dancing in tiny spirals, fading just before it touches the sunlight. You wonder if that's what thoughts look like, when they leave you. Across the wooden deck, a breeze stirs the chimes. They don't play a tune, Just a few scattered notes like memory fragments brushing against each other in the attic. She leans forward slightly and asks, "Have you eaten your rice?" You blink. "Of course you have." She smiles. "Then go wash your bowl." It's an old koan, a famous one. Joshu's, in fact. But she says it like it's not about Zen at all. Just tea. Just rice. Just washing. She pours you another cup. You sip again. Your eyes drift to the edge of the table where a small crack runs down the surface like a river through sand. It wasn't there last autumn. Or maybe it was, and you only see it now. She catches your gaze. "Tea tables don't crack," she says. "They remember." You sit with that. You remember a story the old cook once told, about a monk who tried to make the perfect cup of tea every morning for 30 years. Not for praise, not for guests. Just for the moment when the tea met the lip, and nothing else mattered. The monk died during one such sip. His fellow monks wept, but someone said, "At least he got it right that time." Zen stories are like that. They don't end. They pause somewhere interesting. The nun picks up a tiny dried leaf that's landed beside the teapot. She twirls it gently between her fingers, then flicks it into the breeze. "Let the wind carry what doesn't stay," she says. You nod. The tea is growing colder, but you don't mind. Cold tea, warm hands, a fair trade. You set the cup down, your fingers brushing the wood, feeling the grain beneath the surface. Everything here is textured with use, smoothed by years of gentle repetition. Ritual, without rigidity. She's already brewing another pot. This one smells faintly of chrysanthemum, and something hard to name. Like autumn itself, if it could be steeped. You don't reach for a cup this time. You just sit, and she lets you. In a world that asks for answers, this is the rarest kindness, to be offered nothing but presence. The breeze dies down. A fly buzzes once, then decides against your company. You're grateful. You're still. You leave without standing up. That is to say, you rise, but part of you stays behind, resting in the wood, the steam, the stillness. As you walk away, you hear her voice, nearly lost in the wind. "Every time you come here, I pour tea before you arrive." You pause, turn slightly. "How do you know I'm coming?" "I don't," she says, "but the tea does." The scroll room is silent, except for the soft sigh your sandals make against the tatami. You don't come here often. Too much history in the air, too many monks whispering with their eyes. But today, the light drew you in. Autumn sunlight spills through the paper windows, casting maple shadows along the far wall. They dance gently, as if the trees outside are telling stories with their limbs. You pause just inside the doorway, letting your breath match their rhythm. Inhale with the sway. Exhale with the stillness. The room smells like cedar, ink, and memory. You step softly toward the scrolls, careful not to disturb their paper slumber. Some of them are hundreds of years old. Some are blank. You've always found that comforting. Not all wisdom arrives pre-written. One scroll catches your eye. An old one, worn at the edges, its ribbon faded to the color of old tea. You don't open it. Just place your palm gently on the fabric. It's enough. The ink inside doesn't need to speak to be understood. Your master once told you, the best scrolls are the ones you never unroll. They teach you patience and respect. Then he winked. Also, they tend to be about taxes. You sit on the floor near the window, where the shadow of a maple leaf lands across your shoulder. It moves when you breathe, like it's part of you. You let it. There's an old koan painted on the beam above your head. You've read it dozens of times, but never really read it. Two monks argue over a flag. One says it moves. The other says the wind moves. The master says, your minds move. Today, it lands differently. Maybe because the shadows are moving too. Maybe because you're no longer so sure your mind is where you left it this morning. You glance at the inkstones near the low table. One has a single brush laid across it, its bristles stained but clean. Someone wrote something recently. Or tried to. You remember the novice monk again. He once spilled ink here, left a perfect print of his elbow on a fresh scroll. He tried to hide it by writing a poem around it. Autumn sky above, elbow-shaped cloud on paper. I meant to do this. The abbot framed it. You lie back, letting your head rest on your folded arms. Above you, beams creak gently as if the roof is breathing. You count each breath until thought begins to fray. That's when you hear the wind pick up. It slips through the slightly cracked window. Not roaring, not whistling, just entering. It carries with it the dry rustle of leaves, the memory of a bell, the scent of distant firewood. It doesn't disturb the room. It completes it. The scrolls ripple ever so slightly. You don't move. The light shifts. The maple shadows now lie across your chest, your knee, your open palm. You look down and see your hand as a branch, your fingers as limbs. Not metaphor. Just reality, refracted through stillness. Zen teachers still wonder whether shadows carry karma. One suggested shadows are karma's footprints, what lingers after the act, the echo of intention. You let your eyes close, the warmth of sun mixing with cool wind. For a moment there is no ink, no teaching, no leaf, no you. Only shadow and breath. Then a thud, soft, near the door. A single maple leaf has fallen inside the room. It rests half in, half out. Undecided. You smile. The decision isn't yours to make. But the appreciation is. You rise without sound. The scrolls don't notice. Or maybe they do. But like any good teacher, they say nothing. You exit the room slowly, letting the door close behind you with a sigh. The maple shadows follow you out, dancing on your sleeves like old friends who never ask for explanation. The bell tower leans ever so slightly to the west, just enough that some days you wonder if it's bowing to the sunset. Its beams creak in the wind, but not from weakness, more like the way a knee groans when rising from zazen. Well-worn, trustworthy, human somehow. You arrive just before the hour, your feet padding softly over the stone. The rope dangles loose from the bell's striker, swaying gently as if it too is meditating. You reach for the rope, then pause. The bell hasn't rung this morning. It should have, but didn't. And no one has rushed to fix it. You tilt your head and listen. No scurrying novices, no muttered apologies, no sound of sandals in a hurry. Just the breeze weaving through bamboo. Strange. Or maybe not. You sit beneath the tower, cross-legged, as if waiting for the bell to explain itself. It doesn't. There's an old saying. When the bell forgets to ring, what else becomes possible? Maybe that's the lesson. Maybe the moment isn't broken. It's just breathing in before speaking. Or maybe the monk responsible for the bell is asleep under a persimmon tree again. He did that once. Claimed it was research into impermanence. You recall a koan about a student who was late to meditation because the temple rooster didn't crow. When questioned, he said, "If the rooster sleeps, the sun still rises." The master laughed and made him head of the kitchen. Zen masters often reward the wrong answers, if they're answered well enough. You glance at the bell. Its bronze is dappled with lichen, softened by seasons. A small spiderweb stretches between the striker and its frame. That alone would stop the ring. A web. A whisper of effort. How many great things, you wonder, are paused by threads too delicate to notice? You close your eyes and imagine the bell ringing. Deep, slow, expansive. You feel it in your ribs, even without the sound. The echo is memory, or hope, or both. A squirrel chitters nearby. The same one from earlier, maybe. You open one eye. He's balancing on the rope now, curious. You nod. He doesn't. Enlightenment. Still not polite. You stand and brush the dust from your robe. The bell remains silent. It's funny. You didn't come here to ring it, just to be here when it did. And now that it hasn't, you feel fuller than if it had. Your master once told you that the absence of a thing reveals more than its presence. When you're hungry, he said, a missing bowl teaches you more than a full one. You didn't understand then, but maybe you do now. You start to walk away. The breeze lifts a strand of your sleeve, tugging gently. Behind you, the spiderweb glimmers in the morning light. You smile. The world didn't fall apart when the bell forgot to speak. Instead, Everything just listened harder. You pass the courtyard where chrysanthemums bloom stubbornly in their little pots, ignoring the cold like seasoned monks. Past the stone basin, past the washline where robes flutter like sleepy ghosts, until you reach the temple annex, where the cat lives. Or, perhaps more accurately, where the cat permits you to live. She's already there, of course, perched on the windowsill, blinking slowly in that way cats do when they've already judged you and decided you're not important enough to scold. Her fur is mostly white, with a single black dot on her head, right between the eyes. A novice once called it her third eye. The head monk promptly named her Zenko, the enlightened one. She's never meowed in her life. You sit on the bench beneath her. She doesn't move. The sunlight makes patterns through the wooden lattice, falling across her fur in dappled warmth. She looks like she was painted by someone very old and very precise. No one knows where she came from. One morning, she was just there, sitting perfectly still on the altar cushion. The master laughed so hard he almost dropped his staff. Finally, he said, someone's using it properly. She stayed. She attends morning zazen, but only the parts she likes. She wanders through the library, naps in the scripture cabinet, and once, in the middle of a Dharma talk, she jumped on the abbot's shoulder and stared straight into his eyes for 10 full seconds. He said nothing. Later, he wrote an essay titled, "The Gaze That Emptied Me." Zenko yawns now, revealing a tiny pink tongue and a lifetime of secrets. You yawn back. It feels appropriate. There's a koan, some attribute to Rinzai. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, feed the cat. Or maybe that was just something someone added in the margins. Still, it makes you smile. A leaf lands beside her. She doesn't flinch, doesn't look, doesn't even acknowledge the universe's attempt at drama. Enlightenment, it seems, does not concern itself with falling foliage. You try to match her stillness, and fail. After 5 minutes, your leg tingles. After 10, your mind starts narrating nonsense. Should I meditate? Is this meditation? What if she's already beyond all forms? What if she's asleep? You glance up. She is. Her third eye twitches slightly in her dreams. You wonder what enlightened cats dream about. Mice made of moonlight? Dharma wheels that spin into saucers of milk? Zen masters still wonder whether animals can achieve satori. Some say yes. Some say they already have. Some say that asking the question reveals more about you than about the cat. The temple once had a heated debate over whether Zenko should be officially inducted as a nun. In the end, the scroll for her ordination blew away in the wind, and no one chased it. That was the decision. You rise, bow slightly, and begin to walk away. Behind you, Zenko opens one eye. You hear her tail flick once. Whether in blessing or dismissal, you do not know. You do not need to. A breeze stirs. The window frame creaks. A cloud passes over the sun, dimming the courtyard for a moment. Just long enough for the world to blink. When it brightens again, she's gone. Or maybe she was never there. Or maybe you were dreaming her. Like a nap the monastery forgot it was taking. You look down and find a single white hair on your sleeve. You don't brush it off. The wind has shifted. It no longer whispers. It presses. Not fierce, but purposeful. You tug your robe tighter as you descend the back trail behind the kitchen, the one lined with cedar and memory. You didn't bring your scarf today. It hangs on the hook by your bed, woven of thick brown wool, gifted by a monk who left for the mountains years ago and never returned. He said it was made from the yarn of a particularly stubborn sheep. You believed him. He said many things that made no sense, until they did. You rub your hands together for warmth. The air bites gently at your ears. Autumn is no longer hinting. It's arriving. Each breeze seems to carry with it a reminder. Things are always leaving, even as they arrive. Halfway down the trail, you find a stone bench cradled between 2 sloping trees. You sit. Let your breath become visible, curling like incense. Let the cold find your skin, and then stop resisting. You remember what your master once said. The scarf keeps you warm, but it also keeps you from knowing the cold. You didn't understand then. You do now. There is a clarity in the chill, a simplicity. You feel your fingers, your face, your spine, all at once, like someone ringing the temple bell of your body. And yet, you miss the scarf. Zen teachings often dance between opposites, form and emptiness, cold and comfort, silence and sound. Teachers still debate whether we are meant to transcend discomfort or bow to it. You watch a leaf land beside your foot, perfectly upright. It stands on its stem like a dancer mid-bow. Another lands curled inward like a sleeping infant. Both came from the same tree. Both fell differently. You shift on the bench, your robe rustling like paper. Your nose tingles. A sneeze threatens, then relents. There's a story the old cook told you once, about a monk who wore 2 scarves, one for warmth, one for doubt. When asked why, he said, "I like to stay warm while questioning if I should." He was later appointed head of philosophical debates. His scarves now hang in the study hall, untouched, as if still contemplating themselves. You rub your ears. Across the path, a pine cone tumbles free and lands with a soft thunk. No one sees. No one claps. But something about its landing feels complete. You rise. The wind catches the hem of your robe, tugging it like a child asking a question without words. You walk slowly now, each step pressing leaves into memory. Some stick to your soles. You don't remove them. A gust surprises you. Not violent, just playful. It wraps around you, lifting your sleeves, tousling your hair. It's not trying to chill you. It's trying to speak. You let it. You think about the scarf again. How it waits in your room, folded, faithful. And how maybe tomorrow you'll bring it, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll carry the cold like a koan, unanswered and strangely beautiful. At the bend in the trail, you stop. Below you lies the lower garden, scattered with stones and sun. The wind drops away suddenly, like someone closing a door, and you are left with your breath. No scarf, no warmth. Just this body, this breeze, this moment. You bow to the cold, and it bows back. The branch above you is thin, so thin, you're surprised it still holds a leaf. Just one. Crimson at the edges, yellowing toward the veins, its stem clinging with a quiet ferocity to the bark as the breeze tries, gently but persistently, to convince it otherwise. You've stood here before, each year around this time, watching that one stubborn leaf. It's not always the same branch, not always the same tree, but there's always one. Every autumn, while others float downward in soft spirals of surrender, one insists, not yet, and so you wait with it. This time you find a flat rock and sit, cross-legged as always. But this is not zazen. This is observation, participation. You are audience and actor. The leaf, meanwhile, trembles minutely with every passing sigh of wind. It's a beautiful kind of rebellion. Your master once told a story. A monk asked, "Why do some awaken quickly and others linger in suffering?" The master pointed to 2 leaves. One fell, one did not. "The tree is not in a hurry," he said. You remember laughing, and the master adding, "And neither should you." Zen teachers still disagree about whether clinging is natural or illusion. Some say even attachment has its season. Others argue that anything grasped, even softly, binds the heart. The leaf makes no argument. It just holds. Below, the temple rooftops glisten in soft sun. A few crows gather near the bell tower, gossiping in their raspy dialect. A novice carries firewood with exaggerated care. A pot clinks in the kitchen. Life continues. But your gaze stays here. Sky, branch, leaf. You lean forward slightly, trying not to exhale too sharply. Part of you wants to see it fall. Another part, quietly, secretly, wants it to win. You wonder, what is it the leaf still hopes to witness? One more sunrise? A final whisper of wind? Or perhaps it doesn't hope at all. Perhaps it simply is, until it isn't. Time stretches. The leaf quivers again. Almost, but not. You smile. Not all moments are meant to resolve. You think of a koan. The goose is out. Why doesn't it leave the bottle? The answer varies depending on which teacher you ask, or whether you ask at all. You lie back on the rock. It's cold, but not unkind. The tree above you leans slightly eastward, or maybe it always has, and you only now notice. You watch the clouds slide slowly through the sky, brushing the edges of the sun like careful painters. You wonder if the leaf sees them too. A memory surfaces. The first time you let go of something important. A name, a desire, a person. You don't remember the details, just the silence afterward. How the world didn't end. How you kept walking lighter. And yet, letting go never feels like one motion. It's a rhythm, a loosening, a dance between now and not yet. You glance again. Still there. You exhale, long and slow. Maybe tomorrow, or the day after, or during a storm you'll sleep through. Maybe it will never fall. And maybe that too is Zen. You arrive back at the foot of the temple hill just as the light begins to turn soft and long, stretching every shadow into memory. The path curves gently inward now, as if guiding you home, not to a building, but to a state of quietness you almost forgot you carried. The wind has calmed. Or maybe you have. The sandals on your feet are silent now. You don't remember when the crunching stopped. Somewhere between the garden and the bell tower, your steps became part of the silence instead of separate from it. The monastery seems to breathe with you. You pause before the main hall. Not to go in, just to listen. The doors are closed, but behind them, you sense presence. Not activity exactly. Just the soft gravity of a place that has held centuries of stillness. You reach out and touch the wood, rough beneath your fingers, warm from the day. You do not knock. There's nothing to announce. Instead, you step off the path and into the open space beside the altar stones, the place where your master once sat for 3 days without rising, watching a single pine needle tremble in the breeze. When asked what he saw, he said, "My own breath," finally exhaling. You sit there now. No one joins you. And yet, you are not alone. The wind brushes your cheek once, then again, and then not at all. The sun slips lower, turning the world a shade deeper, as if preparing it for dreams. A crow lands nearby but makes no sound. Even it has grown quiet. The silence arrives. Not the kind made by absence, but the kind that has waited patiently through each section of your walk. That followed you through the garden, the scroll room, the cold, the koans, the cat. It gathers now, not around you, but through you. You hear your own breath, and perhaps something more. Not a voice, not a thought, but a knowing. Not the kind you can describe, the kind that dissolves the need to. You remember a final teaching your master left behind, written on a slip of cloth, tucked into the folds of his robe. Speak not of silence. Let it speak of you. You close your eyes. A leaf falls nearby. You don't open them to watch it. You don't need to. And now, as the last light dips behind the mountains and the temple fades into soft hues of shadow and wood smoke, you sit still, no longer moving, no longer seeking. The walk has ended, and yet, something continues. Each breath grows longer, like a river widening before it meets the sea. Each thought grows softer, like a feather laid gently atop another. The wind has curled itself into a quiet hush. No more footsteps. No more questions. Just this. A monk. The scent of earth. And the faint warmth left in stone. The silence you've carried all day now carries you. You do not need to hold it anymore. Let your shoulders soften. Let your spine rest like a reed bending gently. Let your eyes close not with force, but with ease, like the last leaf, finally letting go. And in this stillness, remember, there is no perfect way to walk, no perfect way to listen, no perfect way to be. There is only this moment, and in it, you are whole. You are already home, so rest now. May the breeze of clarity follow you into your dreams, and may the silence speak of you long after you've fallen asleep.